Fresh off his trip to Cooperstown, where he saw his prized pupil, Craig Biggio, enter the Hall of Fame, we're joined on the phone line by Matt Galante, who all Astros fans remember from his 17 years as a coach. Thanks so much for joining us. Biggio spent 2 minutes of his speech crediting all the work you and he did on that transition from catcher to second base. What were you thinking, Coach, when Craig said he wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame if it wasn't for you?
Craig has said these things to me before, privately, but to hear it in front of all of Famers and about 50,000 people in the stands and all on TV, MLB Network, that was something special. It was really a special moment for me.
He described those long days during the spring training where you guys worked on the transition from catcher to second base. What are your memories from that time?
The memories were the long days we had, and he's pretty correct. We started early in the morning for about an hour, and then he would go and work out with the rest of the team. And then when either the game or the practice was over, we'd go back on the backfield again and go for about an hour or two. But the other thing about it is it wasn't just 6 weeks, because there was the 6 weeks in spring training, but we did this same program pretty much for a couple of years, not early in the morning, but before home games. He would come out, we'd work and work and work until game time.
What was it like to be around him on an everyday basis? What made him so special beyond those physical tools that we all know about?
What makes him special is the way he played the game. He wanted to be the best. He wanted to be the best hitter. He wanted to be the best fielder. One of the things he told me when we made the transition, there were two things that stick out in my mind. One, he said, don't tell me what I'm doing right. Just let me know when I'm doing something wrong. And then the other thing was when he said, if we do this, I want to win a Gold Glove. And he won 4 of them. So that's the type of attitude why he's the Hall of Famer.
What's it like to see one of your players enshrined in the Hall of Fame? What was that whole weekend like?
Incredible. It was an incredible weekend. My wife and I had a great time, not only with Craig, but seeing all the players and former GMs and coaches that were there to witness this. Just brought back so many memories, and we loved every moment when we were working with Craig.
Had you been to Cooperstown before for the Hall of Fame weekend?
No, I've been to Cooperstown a number of times, but never on a Hall of Fame weekend. Boy, that was something special.
I know there was the transition from catcher to second base, but also didn't you help Jeff Bagwell in his transition from third base to first base as well?
Well, we did, but, that transition really wasn't that tough because Jeff being a third baseman, I think that was an easier switch to first, being an infielder. Craig never played in the infield before. It was very difficult.
One of the guys that you worked with and Craig talked about in his speech is Yogi Berra, and I know everybody's got a great Yogi story. What are your memories about working with Yogi, and is there a story about Yogi that really sticks out? Or I'm sure you've got more than one, but give us a story or two about Yogi.
Well, Yogi's a legend, as we all know. And Craig said yesterday that he was going to drive back to Jersey and we'd meet up and he'd not go see Yogi again. We saw him over Christmas time. But, Yogi used to say the simplest things. And you'd say, what's he saying? And then all of a sudden you realize, this is pretty cool. Now he'd say, if you see the ball, and you can get the bat on the ball, hit it. And then you sit and say, that's not bad. So, some of his yogiisms, when you first look at them and you say, this doesn't mean much, but as you sit down and listen to it again and again, you say, this is a pretty smart statement. And Yogi was very instrumental in the beginning because Craig was a catcher. And I think he learned a lot from Yogi, being a former catcher and a Hall of Famer. And one of the things I was thinking about yesterday as I toured the Hall of Fame again, I looked at Babe Ruth, Garrett, Hank Aaron, Mantle, Musial, and I came up with Craig Biggio. And that's awesome. That's just awesome.
Give me one of your favorite memories from your time with the Astros. I know you have had a bunch of great memories over those years between 1985 and 2001 as a coach. Give me one of the favorite games or memories that you have from that time.
One of the biggest games we had in '86 when we clinched our division. Mike Scott threw a no-hitter in that game against the Giants, and I vividly remember it because I know we needed one game to clinch the division. You know, Mike went out, he walked one guy, and he hit another guy, and I turned to one of our coaches and said, "Oh, this is a bad day to have a bad game." And before you know it, we had the no-hitter. So that was a memorable game for us. Very exciting getting into the playoffs against the Mets. That whole series was just a tremendous series. 16-inning ball game, we'll never forget. And it was a tight series. And I thought we should have won that series. But hey, it's a lot of games you think you should have won, but it's not over until it's over, just like Yogi said.
What do you remember about those 2 months that Randy Johnson pitched for the Astros? Craig mentioned it in his speech, and Randy, of course, mentioned it in his speech as well. And all the Astros fans really loved that.
I'll tell you what, Randy was there for 11 games over 2 months. He was 10-1. The only game he pitched poorly in was a game in Philadelphia. And I remember him walking off the mound in the first inning saying, "This mound is too high for me. I'm going to have trouble." And he did. But other than that, he was perfect. And we went out there, much like a few pitchers we had, like Nolan and Mike Scott, you felt you had a chance to win it every night he went out there. He was a pretty accomplished pitcher when we got him. And Jerry Hunter, as the GM, did a great job getting him over to Houston because we needed another pitcher. And not only was he another pitcher, but he was obviously one of the best in baseball.
One last thing. It strikes me that there's all these New York guys between you and Craig and Jeff Bagwell, also a Northeastern guy, not a New York guy, but Yogi as well, who spent all those years with the Yankees. They all seem to love Houston. Was there any camaraderie between you guys because you had spent all that time in the Northeast between you?
That, I think, was the beginning of why we really got along and got to know each other well, especially Craig and I. Craig being from Seton Hall University, and I went to St. John's University, and those were the biggest rivalries. And Baggy being from the Northeast, around the Boston area, it was a natural friendship that grew quickly.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.